Hi, it's Jenny, and today we're going to use watercolor pencils. If you've never used them before, this is a great start. I'm not a pro at all with them, but I got them once to try, and this is something that you can do and try dry pencils versus wet pencils. So here's what we're going to do today, and stay tuned and I'll teach you what I did. Just look at this corn. It just amazes me how it grows from a seed. Making ears of corn that you can't really see right now. But when we paint them, we're going to paint Indian corn. It just amazes me. Like, look at all the fur that's actually on there to protect the stem. And they're tall. They're taller than I am. They're reaching up to the sky. Fall is one of my favorite seasons. Of course, there's things about every season that I love. But today we're going to work on Indian corn. It's almost harvest time here. And so we're going to just sketch a thin oval. And that's the ear of corn. And we're just going to make some guidelines that go down so that we can use that for our ovals here in a second. So they're not anything perfect. You want them about the same length, or width, I should say. There's that. And then we need to have the leaves, or the husk. So you could have maybe a piece comes down here, and that's a husk that is kind of overlapping the corn. Maybe a couple of them are up here, and then the rest maybe are just all over the place, going off the page, etc. Okay, so there's your starting point. And then you're going to use watercolor pencils. This is very easy to do. It's easy if you turn your page a little bit to make it work with your hand, the angle of your hand. And you're going to randomly draw ovals between these lines. So this is a piece of corn, a kernel of corn. And you can do those all over, and you want them to go sideways to, for your corn on the cob. And you can just do a whole bunch. You want to kind of push hard. And we're putting this watercolor on dry paper. You're just going to keep on doing this until you have all of your kernels colored in here. And you can see there's not any right or wrong way to do this. You're just going to have your kernels all over the place. You don't want to go on your husks though. Not yet. And when you get tired of this color, I picked yellow because that's the most prominent color. And then we'll go over here and we'll pick some different colors. Maybe we'll throw a few little purples in here. You see how they're not perfect. They're not always solid. And if you're leaving a space, you always want to leave enough for another kernel. And you're just going to keep on doing this until you've filled your entire paper. Grab some orange. Colors of orange or yellow. That one's kind of a tiny spot. And it's amazing what this is going to look like at the end. Let's see, maybe we'll put just a couple of red ones in. Trying to make sure that they're all spaced out, not all red all together. And then just fill in with some other colors. Alright, so it looks like we're pretty much colored in. And this is when you go to the next step, which we're just still working on the corn, not the husks yet. And you're going to get your brown. This time, you're going to have water. And I like to brush it on first. And you're only going to want to do a little bit at a time. You don't want to just scrub all over because that'll mix all your colors. But you want to make sure that you do a little area. You don't want to do too much because you're going to take your brown colored pencil and you're going to have it wet. And it's going to fill in all these little corners and go around each of your kernels of corn. and you have to keep it wet. So you got to experiment watercolor pencils, wet and dry. And I'm fairly new to colored pencils, or watercolor pencils. So this was a good activity for me to kind of learn how the colored pencils work, or the watercolor pencils. Now, so you can tell that I'm on dry ground here, so I have to get it wet again. Some people dip their pencils directly in the water, but I prefer just to use a paintbrush to get them wet. So I just get this wet, and then the wet in between, a little wet. Just don't want to blend all my colors. But isn't that cool how the water just makes that solid? And then you go on with your colored pencil, or your watercolored pencil. Around. And then you just kind of fill in for shading. So I'm going to keep on doing this, and I'll be back. Okay, so now you can see that I have outlined it all, and it was very fast. And you can see that some of them didn't get blended as well, so you just can go back and blend the ones that you can tell, like this one did not get water, or at least not a lot. And it's okay if some of the kernels get some of the other colors, because it just gives different shades of orange and reds and those different colors. Okay. I can tell there's a couple of spots that didn't maybe get what they needed here. I'm just dipping the pencil in the water, which is fine to do, whichever's easiest for you. Now, I'm not a pro at watercolor pencils at all, but this is a fun exercise to see the difference between using them wet and using them dry. So the next thing we're gonna do is our husks. So I just use my brown and I usually do dry. It was a little wet there. Kind of draw my outline a little bit. A little shadow on there. And then this leaf up here, just kind of go with the flow so I can have some shading on the husk. And this one was down in here. It's going to be darker down here in the center. And you always want to go with the flow of your leaf. You don't want to go like this. That's not the way the leaf goes, or the husk. And then for this, just go on down. And the little curve gives you that feeling that it's flowing. And then I'm just going to use some different colors of yellow, just kind of put the color on there, because the paintbrush that has water is going to do the rest. I'll use some brighter yellow as well. Just kind of get in there. So I have some highlights. There we go. Some highlights up here. Over here a little bit. And then finish it off over here. And you see me turning my paper because sometimes it's easier to have your paper go a different direction since you have that natural curve with your hand. Your fingers just kind of curve around. Alright, so let's let the magic begin. Let's get some water and just kind of go with the husk that you're working on. If you go out like I just did, it doesn't matter. You just kind of go with it. Just grab it a little bit with the paintbrush. It blends it all together. And you can do multiple ears of corn and make them different shades of color. But one was enough for me to just show you how you can get the wet and the dry watercolor pencils, getting the hang of it, and actually making something that's really pretty in the meantime. Alrighty, so here you go. You've got a piece of Indian corn with its husk still on, or some of it at least. I hope this inspires you to try watercolor pencils and enjoy the fall.